Hello and welcome. My guest today is Indian-Canadian filmmaker Deepa Mehta. Her films have over a period of time put India up for scrutiny, and that has resulted in her getting threats of violence and disruption, but it hasn't let it stop her. She's back in India this week with her new film called Midnight's Children, based of course on that famous story by Salman Rushdie. Deepa Mehta, it's wonderful to have you back with this film. We're looking forward to its release even as we speak. Is this going to sail through peacefully the way it is right now? What is your gut instinct?
You know, as far as India is concerned, I don't know. I hope it's going to be fine. It's gone, Midnight's Children has gone through the censor board without one picture cut. So that's wonderful. But as I say that, I think of Kamal Hassan's Vishwa Rupam, which also went through the censor board, but at the last minute got. You never know what's going to happen and who it's going to happen to. Midnight's Children might be just, sail through it and everything would be fine. And it might not be. I don't know. Everything's up for grabs, isn't it?
What is your mental frame where you have a new piece of work out there, your expression, you're the artist, this is what you've created, and the conversation around it tends to be overwhelmingly,
just like this one is
at the moment.
Yes. Sometimes it's one of resignation, sometimes it's one of anticipation, sometimes it's one of amusement, and sometimes it's just, as a filmmaker who's nervous about their work being seen by folks in the country of their birth, and it's a mixture of all of them. And right now I'm sort of on a very equilibrium state of mind.
What is the goal for this film where you're concerned? What would you like this film to do for its audience, given that everybody is going to come to it with different, with different baggage?
I don't know. What do I, as a filmmaker, you want your film to be seen, to be appreciated. There are going to be people who, can't stand it. There are going to be people who love it. There are people who are going to be surprised by it. And I've sort of been around the block and know that that's what happens. And there are very few films in the world that are embraced by all. Yeah. And I think earlier on I would have felt that it's important that it gets seen in India. That was very important for us. And that the fact that it's going to be actually screened in India without a cut, without cinematic cut, then means a lot. So that's huge.
What was the principal challenge? Because I saw the film and I felt that you may have been constrained, at least in terms of the exterior shots, or what we can see of the outside world that this story is happening in. Was that a constraint, the fact that you had to shoot this in Sri Lanka?
Not at all. In fact, the reason I decided not to shoot in Bombay or Mumbai or Delhi was because I wouldn't have been able to go wide. The minute you go on a wide shot anywhere here,
you lose period.
You can't get it. So in fact, it was the other way around. The reason we decided to shoot in Sri Lanka was that I couldn't go wide in India, but I could. So I'm sort of surprised you said that, because that's been one of the nice things about the period houses in Sri Lanka. The view of the sea is not sullied by big sky rises, and also the period of the novel, the 50s, 60s and 40s doesn't exist here anymore.
I was hearing some interviews in which you've said that the narrative, the voiceover narrative that happens in Salman Rushdie's voice, was something that you took a decision to put in at a later stage in the film. Why did you feel the need to use what I think we would call a sutradhar, isn't it?
Well, not really, because the voice of the narrator is the voice of Salim Sinai.
Right,
so it's not a sutradhar, it's not a third person telling the story. It's older Salim looking at his life. The reason, it was very simple. I mean, when we got the fine cut, and I looked at it, I remember one day very sort of as dispassionately as one can, and felt that what was maybe missing in the film was what had attracted me initially to the book, which was the language. Salman's use of English or Hinglish, or his philosophy, or his or the words themselves, the way they fall in conjunction or against each other. He says it's a very particular language, especially in Midnight's Children, and there's not very much dialogue in the film. So, and also I felt very strongly that there were, if we were shooting in Srinagar, that we should have few things in Kashmiri. So there's Kashmiri, there's Bhojpuri, there's
a little
Marathi.
bit of Bengali when the
exactly.
in 71 when the
Yes,
war.
and there's a
happening.
Marathi, when he comes. So somehow that language was lost. So I felt it was very important to incorporate the beauty of that, and to have an older Salim look at his life.
Was it also to help audiences, people who may not have read the book, people who don't understand, that approach, which is, the disappearing and the reappearing and things like that, which are in books, which, magic realism, these are things that people can find easier to sort of connect with.
Not at all. I mean, it wasn't about exposition and saying, okay, this is the reason to make it easier, because there's actually nothing, I think. And if I felt that way, I wouldn't have done it, because there's nothing as irritating as exposition and saying that this is what's happening. It was more a philosophical look. So he talks about when the Bangladesh war happens, and it's about not the war as much as people who are friends and who are now enemies. So it's a commentary, if you will, on a state of being, which is different than of exposition. So not at all. I never felt
the
that.
other thing was that towards the end of the film, I loved the assembled family. I love what that means, and I love the sense of hope. And there's one dialogue where they're talking about a young boy, and they say he will speak when he has something to say. And at that point, it sort of moves away from the book in terms of the optimistic note, and Salman Rushdie has credited you with that approach, with that tone for the ending. Why do you feel that you needed to have that tone?
For me, Midnight's Children is amongst. It's not just a physical journey of or a coming of age story of Salim Sinai, as well as the coming of age of India. Yes, that's there for sure. But as a woman, I think for me, all Salim's journey and all the women that are a part of that journey is what really attracted me. The strong mothers, the strong aunts, the lovers left behind, the wives whose husbands disappeared, the wives who are compromised by having to change their names, and it's very much it became a film about women for me.
And that's something that has always been your particular concern, isn't it?
Not concern. Instinctively.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's concern, because concern means you're outside something. It's been something that intrigues me.
And intrinsic. Maybe it's intrinsic. In
yeah.
fact, Deepa, why I ask this is because a lot of your work is from the woman's gaze, is about the way you, being a woman, see the world, and not as a statement, but because, like you said, it's a natural, intrinsic part of you. And yet today there are filmmakers, there are CEOs of companies, women in positions of power, or or where they're making decisions, and where they play down their gender very much. What do you make of that? I'm very curious, because there's a tendency to sort of say, it's not about being feminist or about being a woman, it's everything's equal, it doesn't matter. And I don't think you feel that way.
I don't.
It informs your decisions because you're a woman, isn't it?
Sometimes, not all the times. It can get to be actually. I can understand why people would or women would want to play that down, because it's added baggage. It's something that yes, you believe in strongly, but it's like every time you have to defend or talk about your belief, and I think that's what mitigates or dilutes anything that you want to say, is when before the work is addressed, or before what it's like to be a CEO of a company is addressed, what comes in front is how do you feel about it being a woman, and that can be slightly off the point. It should be a part of it. It's a given. For me, it's not something I defend or accept or deride or feel or wear it as a badge of honor. It's a given. Of course, my gaze is one of of a woman because I am one. My concerns are of being a woman or what happens with women because I am one. But does it necessitate my decision to make a particular film? No, not at all. It's a story that moves me, and the story of Salim Sinai is wonderful. But I don't know if I'd been as I could have been as passionate as
if the women in his life were not who they were.
Weren't three-dimensional, weren't a very, not a very, just the mother is an amazing figure. I mean, Shahana's done an amazing job. Or
I was just going to, bring that up because I
Seema,
thought she just
look at that.
Yeah.
The role of the Ayah,
Mary.
I mean, is so strong.
Yeah.
The power to change destiny.
Yeah.
That is
hers.
That is hers.
And it's also
Indira Gandhi.
It's also Indira Gandhi.
Absolutely.
At the public level and at the private and personal level.
It's Mary's. So that whole sort of arc of women, the mothers, the wives, the politicians, the ayahs are just superb. I mean, that's what really made me excited about the film.
You have a wonderful ensemble cast. Rajat Kapoor, you have Shahana Goswami, you have Ronit Roy, all of them playing, different Siddharth, all of them playing
Siddharth
some
is amazing.
interesting characters. Shreya. So the thing is that was it a difficult film to cast? How did that process happen? Because these are the people who actually breathe life and forever become the images in our head.
When I cast for a film, it usually happens around the script stage, and even in this, I thought there might be some actors who I thought were a given for me. I mean, I always knew that I'd love Shabana to play the grandmother. I knew that I really wanted Seema to play Mary, and then I was in Bombay looking around for actors, and we met, and it so happened that Salman was also here. So that was great that he could be a part of the process, because I think these are his characters, his very extremely loved and characters that he has a lot of affection for. So it was wonderful that he could be a part of the process, so to speak. The first thing that I always do when the sets are okay, and I've had a lot of time with my director of photography, cinematographer, deciding what are the colors of the light. That is it going to be warm lighting? Is it going to be cold lighting? How are we going to shoot the magic realism with the children? How are we going to shoot the emergency, which is really a period where all color has been leached out of life, because without freedom, the world becomes immaterial. So it was about how do you have so many metaphors, how do you change the metaphors into actual film that people can see and respond to. And the other thing that takes place during location and when you're shooting is wardrobe. What is the color palette of the film? And very earlier on, I don't know why, but I decided that when I put on my director's hat, and that what the script evoked in me was the color blue, green, and splashes of red. Green for fertility, blue for despair, and red for passion.
I know you're tired of the fact that every conversation with you end up talking about these, in India, what have become sort of iconic moments in this, in these two forces of an artist's desire to express, and some groups or some people's desire not to allow that expression, whether it was with fire or with water. And I've heard you say on different occasions that your relationship or the bond you had with India, you had to revisit and re-look at because of these very personal experiences that you've faced. Have you come to peace with that reassessment that you made a few years ago?
Totally, and I think that perhaps, in retrospect, it was very painful what happened with water, because we had to stop shooting, and we couldn't shoot here, and I was really upset and very angry about what had happened, because to be a soft target and to be so blatantly used politically, because that's what it was. I mean, it wasn't really about keeping Bharatiya Sanskriti alive. It was about being a soft target for political, a means for political whatever. But it took me about five years to get over it, and I told myself that I won't revisit water till I stop being angry, because if when you create anything out of anger, it becomes dishonest, and but and that really, I think in retrospect, that was perhaps the best thing that happened to me in many ways, because I stopped, as somebody who had left India and moved to Canada. I was very nostalgic about India. When you leave your homeland because you think, not because you think you're going to have a better life, but because you got married and your husband happens to be Canadian. I never thought my life was going to be better in Canada. I've always thought, let's just go there, see what it's like, and then come home. So and then you have a kid, and before you know it, you're divorced, and then before you know it, you have joint custody, and you can't leave, but my relationship with India was always what I felt was I was extremely nationalistic, and I never let go of being an Indian. I never came to terms with being a Canadian. I felt when anybody would say you're an NRI, I would get very upset. I said, no, I'm not an NRI, I'm an Indian,
who lives in Canada.
Who lives in Canada. But the point is that I'd spend half the year in Delhi. My family's in Delhi. I have a place in Delhi. But I'd never come to terms with the fact that for Indians and India, I'd stopped being an Indian when I left for Canada. So water did that. It took off my rose-colored glasses. It stopped me from being nostalgic about India, and I developed what I think is the most a very realistic and a far more, I think, healthy relationship for me with India. So in fact, it liberated me from a lot of sentimental nonsense. So that's great, and this is what the relationship I have with the country of my birth, and the country that I went to school, university, where got married in. But hey, it's okay, it's fine, I'm an insider, outsider,
and you're just fine with all of it,
absolutely,
with all these multiple identities.
Of course. I mean, it's a bit like being a global soul, and that's okay.
Deepa, a final question: what happens next? This was this big passion project, very collaborative. I don't think you've had to collaborate so deeply with an author previously. And you've adapted other work. Earth was adapted.
No, I worked as closely with Babsi on Earth. Babsi didn't write the screenplay. And it's been a wonderful collaborative experience working with Salman, because not only is he one of the brightest people I know in the world, but he's also really generous. There's a wonderful script and a film that I might be doing later this fall based on Andre Matisse's last years of his life. In this, when he was about 80, he went to south of France to a little village and had the most incredible relationship with his muse, who became a nun. So, and who was about 24 years old. So it's a story about emotional dependency and a coming of age at the age of 80. Yeah. So it's exciting, because that's what makes you excited about doing a film. You spend 4 years of your life or 3 years of your life like doing Midnight's Children, and if you don't feel that you learn something in the process, either about yourself or about the work that you're doing, why do it?
Well, Deepa Mehta, we look forward to Midnight's Children and the next and the next. A lot of food for thought in what you've said. Lovely meeting you. Wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thank you for a really lovely interview. It was a nice change.